Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cloud Wars Live, where we explore today's digital revolution by speaking with business executives and thought leaders who are changing how the world lives, works, plays, learns, and dreams. Our guest today is Mick, the CMO at Cloudera, which has just introduced an exciting new product that he's going to tell us about in this special sponsored episode of Cloud Wars Live. Mick, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, Bob. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks. So, Mick, it's been a lively few weeks for your company. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on there and where things stand right now with Cloudera.
It sure has. No, you're absolutely right, Bob. We had our big sort of seminal customer event just last week in New York City called Strata Data, and it gave us the opportunity to launch something. You talked about hopes and dreams, something that had been a hope and a dream for Cloudera for quite some time called the Cloudera Data Platform. So that was kind of the big news that we launched upon the world just last week.
So, Mick, tell us a little bit about that, because right now, you're right, you hear every company in every industry is talking about a need for better data solutions, how to handle it, how to turn data from being something that up till recently has been a little bit of a problem to get their hands around. How do they turn that into a competitive asset and something that they can build their future on?
Yeah, it's a great jumping off point, Bob, because we had been asking our customers that are largely really big enterprises, Fortune 2000 kind of companies, exactly those kinds of questions. You know, what is it that you need in order to deliver insights from all that data that you've been collecting? How do you manage it better and so forth? And they came back to us and they really said four things. They almost universally to a company, they came back with the same set of things. The first thing they said is, wow, and I love the name of your show is Cloud Wars. They said it's got to be multi and hybrid cloud. It has to support a multitude of different cloud vendors. It needs to support on-premises implementations as well as public cloud implementations and everything in between. So that was item one. The next thing they said is it needs to perform multiple kinds of analytics. It's great to store the data in a data warehouse, but we also want to be able to ingest it at speed, and we want to be able to analyze it in really unique ways using machine learning and artificial intelligence and other similar kinds of techniques. So multifunction analytics was important. The third part, and this shouldn't be too surprising to your customer base here, is as enterprises, they were really adamant that it had to be secure and governed. And last, but certainly not least, they said, you know, it's got to be open. We don't want to be caught in a situation where we're locked in by any one vendor. And we really love the idea of open source and the rate and pace of innovation that it delivers. And we want open APIs and open compute and storage. So openness was really important. And, you know, we got done collecting all that insight, Bob, and we ended up calling that collection of things an enterprise data cloud. And we think we built the first one, and it's the one, the previously mentioned Cloudera Data Platform I just spoke of a moment ago.
Okay. Mick, thanks. And I know that in the weeks leading up to your big customer conference and the launch of your new product here, of the Cloud Data Platform, that you guys had worked with Harvard Business Review Analytics to do some research about it. What were you trying to dig into there, Mick, and what did you find?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely invested in some seminal research there. We talked to nearly a couple hundred executives from large enterprises all over the place, and we really ended up taking away a few big things. First, almost all of them wanted to get more out of their data than they're currently getting out of their data platforms. Unfortunately, as it turned out, nearly 70% of them didn't feel like they had a clear pathway to get there. Overwhelmingly, they also wanted to be able to deal with those multiple and hybrid cloud environments that I spoke of. But today, for the most part, their data remains in silos. So we really pulled away a lot of insightful information. Our big enterprise customers still need a lot of help in kind of assembling, managing, and then extracting value from their data. And that's really what the HBR study came back and told us.
Yeah, Mick, with us, you know, a lot of times I know when we look into studies like that, there's some things that maybe were expected, but were there any surprises in there?
Yeah, there were a few actually. There were a lot more companies that were already invested in multiple clouds. meaning that they may have had some part of an implementation with Microsoft, a different part of the business was using Amazon, and maybe some separate department from that was using Google. And that was much more prevalent than I think we originally anticipated it was going to be.
So, Mick, then you pull a couple of these things together, and it seems to me that broadly across the whole tech space, and more specifically in the cloud industry, it's still very young in a lot of ways, but is maturing very, very quickly. What significance do you put on Cloudera jumping in here with an enterprise data platform? What's that going to do across the tech industry, and why does that matter to your business customers?
Yeah, well, I'm the father of two teenage boys, Bob, so I'm quite familiar with maturing rapidly, maybe a little more rapidly than I'd like at times. Happening for my company and our industry as a whole, also. But yes, I think there was a great piece I just saw written by a colleague and a friend of mine by the name of Peter Levine with Andreesen and Horowitz. And the piece is really about how to build a commercially successful open source software company. And basically, Peter's premise is that there are three phases to those companies. There's the early phase that's dictated by convincing developers and technologists to get into the space and start programming and developing in the environment. The next phase is to get users. So you move beyond just the pure technologist. So now how am I going to, in the case of big data, how am I going to extract meaningful analytics and insights from the data? And then the final phase is how do you show value to large enterprises and build a successful business on it? And Cloudera is in phase 3 of those phases, as are a number of the other companies in the big data and analytics arena. We've moved beyond the, hey, here's all these cool open source bits for you to play with, and here's how useful it can be, to, wow, this is really how you can transform your business fundamentally using data. And I think that's the phase that we're in collectively, not just Cloudera, but other vendors in this space as well have really taken us there. So we went from kind of novel technology 10 years ago to really meaningful, central to running and operating a business kind of technology today.
Mick, can I come back for 1 second on that? What you talked about, that thing of the customers and the transformation there. I am not new to either the tech business or the business world overall. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, every company, every industry is undertaking that type of new adventure, right? Where they've got to become different sorts of companies with different sorts of products and capabilities, all of that driven by data. So what's the role for an enterprise data platform in that transformation of all these companies?
Yeah, you make a great point there. And you may recall when I mentioned the enterprise data cloud that there were 4 core characteristics of one. Well, the second one of those was being multifunction. And let me tell you why that's so important to this strategic question that you just asked. There's no such thing as an enterprise use case that isn't inherently somewhat multifunction. So I'm going to give you a really straightforward one from the manufacturing space that we run into all the time. We have a really big and successful customer of ours. It's called Komatsu. They make mining equipment, massive mining equipment. And Komatsu's story is really interesting to me because not only is it fun as a guy to look at those giant Tonka toys that they've got operating all over the planet, but it's also interesting because they had a very unique business challenge. That equipment cost, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars. And should it not be able to operate or move, even worse, it literally starts to sink into the earth. That's how big this equipment is. So they wanted to develop a model that offered predictive maintenance of those giant machines. So first thing they had to do is put sensors on the devices to sense when something was maybe about to have a problem or a part was about to fail. Then that data that got collected by those sensors had to kind of get shipped back to headquarters. So step 1 was to, put the sensors on, then they had to ingest the data, then they had to analyze it, and ultimately they had to predict what was going to happen with the machine. That's 3 different kinds of analytics that I've just described in one very simple and straightforward use case. So the reason we think it's so strategic and why the industry has changed is that the world is inherently becoming more and more multifunction. I could have just as easily told you a story about retail and sensors that are in aisles that are monitoring shopping behavior. And that would have been the same kind of scenario. You would have need some data capabilities to bring the data in, to store it and organize it somewhere, and then to predict the outcomes of the shopper in that case, instead of the outcomes of the mining equipment. And the bottom line is, no matter what kind of business you're in, if you're not getting the full value out of the data that you're bringing into your business, you are inherently at a competitive disadvantage.
And Mick, one of the reasons I think that's your point is so key right now is, again, going back not that long, but 10, 20 years ago, you'd still hear companies talking about, well, I got my 5-year plan or my 7-year plan. And those are okay in the background, but companies have to be able to move, change, evolve more quickly than ever before. So it's almost like today, if a company starts to fall behind and fails to build that capability you just described, it's going to be awfully hard for them to remain competitive, let alone catch up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, one of my favorite, and this might say a lot about me, books on this kind of topic. It's like one of the world's simplest and fastest reads for a manager. It is called "Who Moved My Cheese?" Yeah. And bottom line is, you got two little mice trapped in a maze, and one of them figures out that, like, eventually the cheese isn't just going to keep showing up in the same place that it's been showing up for the past few days or weeks or months or whatever it happens to be. And the other one says, I'm just going to wait here until this eventually, the cheese just falls upon me. And the world doesn't really work that way in business, I'm afraid. And you have to be agile. You have to be willing to move into uncharted territories and worlds, but you want to do it with all the data that you have at your disposal to guide that journey, to make it a more intelligent, pathway through the maze to find the cheese, so to speak. And, we think we're the kind of company that helps big enterprises do that, to navigate that maze of data where so much of it may not have any value, but boy, finding that one golden nugget is enough to transform your business and make you more competitive.
Yeah. Now, Mick, you've given a great overview of what's happened at large in the business world, the rise of the enterprise data platform. Take us into a little bit more detail now here with Cloudera, and specifically what you're doing with the enterprise data cloud.
Yeah, sure. So we have been working for a number of years in building out a platform that enabled big enterprises to get as much value from their data as they possibly could. And we've described that platform as having capabilities that extend all the way out from the edge, which is where you ingest data in the first place, to data warehousing, where you store and manage it, to machine learning and AI capabilities that you have at the other end of the wire. However, most of that work has largely been focused on premises, inside the data centers of these large organizations. And what's happened over the course of the past several years is that we have all learned that there are a number of types of data and types of use cases that really suit themselves well to delivery in the public cloud, particularly workloads that are maybe getting intermittent access to data as opposed to constant access to it. Machine learning workloads are great examples of those. And so it became really important for our customers to not just have a data center story, but to have a public cloud story, a private cloud story, and a hybrid cloud story that lets all of them talk to one another. And that's what we were so excited about with Cloudera Data Platform. This was the first time we were able to tell that same edge to AI multifunction analytic story that was highly secure and governed, but would run across any kind of cloud environment. And so we really made 3 specific announcements last week. The first one, Bob, was around Cloudera Data Platform Data Hub. That is kind of our DIY model, our do-it-yourself model, and we provide all the analytic functions that you could ever want inside it, but you do a lot of the bolting together on your own. And then we developed 2 very explicit experiences to make it a little more out of the box, a little simpler to set up and get up and running, one for data warehousing and one for machine learning. So 3 products that were announced last week at Strata: Data Hub, data warehouse, and machine learning, all running both as public cloud services and soon in an equivalently functional version that runs in your data center as well.
Okay. So, Mick, you've mentioned a couple times too that at this point and sort of where the industry's headed, there are a number of other tech companies that are understanding that this is a big opportunity. There's a big need here among customers. How does the Cloudera Data Platform separate itself from what some of the other big tech companies are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a complicated question, Bob, because those same cloud providers that I spoke about earlier that are so important for us to partner with, namely, Amazon, Microsoft, Google in particular, are also competitors in some senses. And so they have parts of their product portfolio that compete very directly against what we do. However, as you might guess, Google's not really in a huge hurry to put their workloads up on Microsoft, and Microsoft's not really in a big hurry to put their data workloads up on Amazon. And so inherently being multi-cloud and hybrid cloud out of the gate is a distinguishing characteristic in and of itself. But probably the more important one, Bob, is around that security and governance area that I touched upon earlier. We refer to our features in that space as something called SDX, which stands for Shared Data Experience. And what it enables us to do is offer a common security and governance framework, regardless of which kind of cloud environment you're working in or what analytic function you're performing. Today, if you were to go to any of the public cloud providers out there and you bought a data warehouse from one of them, you would get a certain set of security and governance features with that data warehouse. If you turned it around and you bought some machine learning functionality from them, you would get a different set of security and governance controls. We think that it's important that your security and governance be with you regardless of data set and regardless of analytic function. And that's why SDX really makes the Cloudera Data Platform stand out above and beyond both the house offerings of the public cloud vendors, but also above the specialty players that are out there that maybe just make one product in data warehousing or one product in streaming, et cetera.
Mick, that's one of the points that you've come back to here a couple of times too. I think that this is so important. Again, today, business customers have enough of their own challenges, right? They don't need to be coming in and have to become the negotiator between the different tech vendors. So Cloudera Data Platform's ability to come in and be that, single sort of voice of truth or the connecting point for a lot of those different rivals. It seems to me that among the customer base, they don't want to get caught in the middle of tech company competition. And you seem to be offering them, here's a single unified platform. You don't have to worry about those issues.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Bob. And, it's an age-old problem in IT. Like you, I've been at this for an awfully long time, and I've worked at a lot of those vendors over the course of my many years in the industry. And I think a lot of C-level executives, CIOs in particular at large enterprises, have lived through being stuck with one particular large vendor solution to any given area, and then finding it maybe didn't work quite so well or behave quite so nicely with other vendor solutions. And we very much are trying to be Switzerland in this regard. We don't particularly care where you store your data. You want to store it on premises? Great. You want to store it in the cloud? Have a nice day. We don't particularly care where you perform the compute. You can do that also on premises or in the public cloud, anywhere you'd like. But we do know that no matter where the data travels, how it travels, or how the analytics are performed, enterprises really care a lot about having all of the lineage, all of the history of who touched that data when. None of them want to be on the cover of a newspaper for the latest and greatest data breach. They are all very, very concerned about the privacy of their customers, and having this common security and governance framework that works regardless of where the compute and storage takes place is a really powerful construct for enterprise customers, and we think it makes us unique.
So, Mick, Cloudera, just in all the hard work that's led up to the last few weeks, you've really raised the profile of the need for an enterprise data platform. You've introduced the enterprise data cloud. You've introduced the Cloudera Data Platform. You've done some of this seminal research with HBR to really try to understand what's going on here. So after you pause and the company takes a breath here for a second, what's next for Cloudera? Where do you go, off of this momentum?
Wow, great question. We got a lot of work left to do here. So what we announced last week was specifically availability of the Cloudera Data Platform on AWS. Coming up very shortly here, you'll also see us on Azure. Sometime early in next year, you'll see us show up on Google platforms. We got to finish our own, collective story around being multi-cloud. In that same time frame, kind of on a different set of railroad tracks, we also want to deliver for our customers that want a private cloud experience. So that's an important part of the roadmap that we'll be bringing together early next year, offering the kind of flexibility and the modularity of containers and Kubernetes to manage your workloads from. So we're really excited about, from a product point of view, what's coming next for us. But maybe from a business point of view, we're just really excited to get to talk to our customers about the next generation of data management and analytics. Cloudera Data Platform has been a long time in coming, a long time in the oven, so to speak. So to get to bring it out and begin to serve it to customers is really rewarding in and of itself. And we're going to be busy with that for quite some time, Bob.
Great. And Mick, before we wrap, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Not particularly, Bob. I love getting the opportunity to talk about these kind of things with people that are familiar with the industry and been in it for a long time, like yourself. I hope your customers get some value from this. If I had to leave them with one thing, it would just be that I'd ask the customers and prospects of ours that are listening and watching this to be sure that they take a hard look at the solutions that they are considering out there, and make sure that they can do the things that an enterprise data cloud is supposed to do. Does it really run on more than one cloud? Can it run anywhere? Does it run any kind of analytic? Can it do it securely? And lastly, is it open and giving them the agility and the speed of innovation that they want? If it does all four of those things and it comes from somebody other than us, then God bless, go forth and prosper. But we think we built a pretty unique mousetrap here, Bob. So I hope they use those criteria when thinking about what solutions they're going to invest in the analytics arena.
Well, Mick, perfect. Thank you for the overview. It's an exciting time, not just for Cloudera and what you're doing, but the whole industry. And it sounds like you're kicking open the door for a lot of new value for your customers. And thank you for making the time to, share that story with us here at Cloud Wars Live.
All right. Thanks very much, Bob. And next time I'll be as sharp as you. I'll come in my job's turtleneck as well.
Well, Mick, I find there's enough decisions to make during the day in a closet. I have about 50 of these. And so I can't make a mistake, just
Brilliant.
pick them out.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much, Bob.
Mick, thank you. And thanks to all of you for watching. I hope you'll join us next time for Cloud Wars Live, and like to be sure to thank Cloudera for this special sponsored episode. And we'll see you next time.